Out of all high school football players in America, only around 9 in 10,000 ever get the opportunity to play for an NFL team, which is only marginally higher than being struck by lightning. And assuming you have the talent for it, there's a lot of adversity along the way that you have to either dodge or overcome. What college team you play for, your injury history, and especially your size can all overshadow whatever accomplishments you've worked for your entire football career. And nobody knows this better than Broncos running back Phillip Lindsay. Because despite his constant work and accolades through his entire life, all 32 NFL teams were perfectly comfortable with passing on even letting him have the opportunity to prove himself to their organizations. So this is the whole story of how he made all of them regret writing him off. Phillip Lindsay is Denver bred through and through, and he was born to a tightly knit family with a history of sports success in their local area. From the age of 8, he was a football star and would participate in the Broncos Futures program in the area. Phillip would grow to love the game under the coaching of his father Troy, who held the record for rushing yards in the Denver Public School District back when he played running back there in the 1970s. Phillip would take after his dad and play the same position at South High School in Denver. At 5'8" and only about 150 pounds at the time, he'd need to rely on his hard-nosed but explosive running style to garner more than just local attention. After a productive first 3 seasons, Lindsay had committed to play at the University of Colorado in order to stay close to his family while pursuing his football dreams. But unfortunately, Lindsay's bright future was about to be thrown into jeopardy. Heading into the first game of his senior season, he was within 50 yards of his father's rushing record of 4,400 yards, and he'd get there, but it would come with a price that would hinder Lindsay for years. Only a few plays after breaking his father's record, Lindsay would make an awkward cut and feel 3 pops in his knee. Never a good sign. But the team's physicians at the time didn't sideline him, and he continued to rack up yards and even score a touchdown in that game, despite having just torn his ACL. Following a proper diagnosis and surgery, Lindsay's scholarship to Colorado was now in danger, especially after news broke that their head coach John Embry had just been fired. Fortunately, just about every high school coach in the state told the incoming head coach of Colorado he'd be an idiot to not have Lindsay on the team. So Lindsay very quickly focused on rehabbing his knee. A slow recovery process would require him to be redshirted in his freshman year, but he worked harder than anyone in practice and made life hell for anyone who tried to stop him, earning him the nod for the team's practice squad player of the year. It might not seem like much, but that is the kind of feedback that Phillip Lindsay thrives on, as it only serves to show that the fire that drives him inside is not just under the lights, but in every moment of preparation for his opportunities. Over his next few years at Colorado, his knee would continue to progress back to normal, though it would take nearly all of his college career to do so. In his years in Boulder, Lindsay had earned the nickname the Tasmanian Devil for his ferocity on and off the field. I mean, you take one look at this guy and it's pretty clear that he's got some energy to burn. He continued to grow as a leader as well, being named team captain in just his sophomore season. With his new role came more snaps, and in turn, more stats. By the time Lindsay's senior year had rolled around, he was the best running back in the Pac-12, and he would rack up the 7th most rushing yards in all of the FBS off of 301 rushing attempts, which was good for most in the entire nation. Not to mention he'd break school records at Colorado for all-purpose yards and yards from scrimmage in his time there. But it seemed like none of that was enough for pro scouts, as even though 32 college running backs received an invite to the NFL Combine, Phillip Lindsay wasn't one of them. Nevertheless, he didn't quite get down about it, just pissed off.
Yeah, it motivated me a lot. I ain't gonna lie, it pissed me off. I felt like I deserved to be there. There was players there that it is what it is. But at the end of the day, God had another plan for me.
He channeled his frustration into training hard for his pro day at Colorado, and alongside Lauren Landau, who is now the strength and conditioning coach of the Denver Broncos, he was able to cut his 40 time down from 4.56 all the way to 4.39, faster than 25 running backs that were invited to the Combine. He began the pre-draft process of communicating with different NFL teams, and he had been told by multiple that they were really interested in him. As draft day approached, Lindsay and his family waited with bated breath for a phone call. But that phone call never came, and he would go completely undrafted. By the end of the last day of the draft, Phillip Lindsay's family was exhausted, hurt, and actually in tears from the whole process, and so was Phillip. It hurt all of them knowing just how much of his life was dedicated to pursuing this dream, and now he was repaid by being told that all of his hard work wasn't good enough for a team to want him even a little bit. He felt far more disrespected than sad, and upset that he'd been lied to by so many organizations who told him that they were going to draft him. By the time teams called him interested in pursuing him as an undrafted free agent, he just felt angry at all of them. He didn't really care as much where he went to play, since he didn't really want to play for a team he felt didn't want him. But he didn't have much time to decide, as team representatives move quickly from free agent to free agent after the draft concludes in order to get as many players as they're looking for. While it might have seemed like a no-brainer for him to sign with the Denver Broncos, that isn't how Lindsay felt about it after watching his hometown team betray his trust on national television by drafting 2 other running backs after months of whispering to him that they wanted him on the team. Just as Lindsay was about to tell his agent that he was ready to select the Baltimore Ravens as his landing spot, his mother convinced him to stay home and play for the Denver Broncos. As a family man at heart, he trusted his mom's intuition, and every Broncos fan has her to thank for convincing him to stay. So it was decided, and he was on to training camp with a bigger chip on his shoulder than he'd ever carried his whole life. When July arrived, Phillip Lindsay knew he had to seize every single opportunity he got, whether it was 3 plays on special teams per practice or anything more than that. Pretty soon, his ferocious intensity and desire to get better every day earned him the nickname Pitbull from the defensive line, which is a pretty significant compliment coming from 300-pound men that are trying to take your head off on every play. He'd bring that same incredible tenacity day in and day out, and was a training camp and preseason darling for the team. Before he knew it, his roster spot was secure, and even more than that, there were talks among the coaching staff about getting him more involved at the start of the season. As he had all his life, Lindsay was again clawing his way up the depth chart from the very last rung. Pretty soon, the time came to finalize jersey numbers, and though Lindsay had worn number 2 all through training camp, he called NFL legend Terrell Davis and asked him permission to wear his old number, 30. Davis was already impressed by how hard Lindsay had worked that offseason, and the gesture showed him that Lindsay had respect for those who came before. He was getting support from not only coaches and players, but those with impact around the team. Number 30 it is. When Week 1's game kicked off, Lindsay had no clue how much he'd be playing, and was completely numb to the massive NFL stage from how much adversity he'd have to overcome just to be standing on the sidelines. But the Broncos had much bigger plans for him, to the tune of 17 touches, most among all running backs on the team, and he took advantage of them for over 100 yards from scrimmage and a receiving touchdown. The NFL was shocked after assuming that Royce Freeman was set to inherit that massive workload after being drafted in the 3rd round. Week 2 would continue the story, as Lindsay was again the lead back with 14 carries for over 100 yards and another touchdown. He was explosive, ripping off chunk play after chunk play behind a strong offensive line, and he took advantage of every time he touched the ball. He still wore his emotions on his sleeve, and his intensity would get him into trouble, ejected from his 3rd game against the Ravens for throwing a punch, though Lindsay claims it was incidental. But that setback didn't slow him down, as he continued to steamroll opponents, averaging a whopping 6 yards per carry over his next 9 games, complemented by an additional 8 touchdowns on the ground. The pinnacle of his season was in Week 13 against the Bengals, where he posted 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. He quickly became a driving force for success on a Broncos offense that was sorely in need of explosive play, and that's exactly what he was. Before the season, no one outside of Colorado really knew Phillip Lindsay's name, but they sure did now. And though the Broncos fell out of the playoff hunt late in the season, Lindsay would finish his rookie campaign with over 1,000 yards on the ground and another 241 through the air, supplanting every other Broncos running back atop the depth chart. Not to mention, he'd just completed the best underdog story in the whole NFL. And soon enough, the football world recognized his success too, with his first Pro Bowl nomination serving as the first ever for an undrafted offensive rookie. He'd sustained an injury at the end of the year, and now with the Broncos moving on to Vic Fangio at head coach next season, Phillip Lindsay's going to need to prove himself all over again. But with the momentum he's carrying into 2019, even at 5'8", best of luck slowing him down. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy what I do here on the channel, please subscribe and hit the notifications bell, that way you'll be up to date on all my new content. We're just about to hit 10,000 subscribers on the channel, which is absolutely mind-blowing, and I want to thank each and every one of you for helping us to get to this point so far. I'm also looking to set up a Discord server in the next couple of days for subscribers, so if you guys want to talk football or video ideas or just hang out, totally up to you, but I'll be looking to set up a link for that in the next couple of days, so keep a lookout on the community tab on YouTube for that. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram for any updates about the channel. The links to both of those will be in the description. Until the next video, thanks for watching and take care.